In this video we're going to look at the import and export of Gedcom to SVG family tree generator. So we're going to look at these aspects individually: the import, bringing Gedcom into SVG family tree generator, and export, which will be exporting a tree you've designed in this tool. So let's fire off SVG family tree generator, and we're going to start with a completely new tree. Again, just call it tree test for our purposes. And just to show there's nothing there, the tree designer shows a completely empty grid. But we're going to change some of the settings. We're going to make the grid a little bit smaller so it's easier to see. And we're also going to set an image proportion because we want to use an example that includes images. On the file menu you'll find an import Gedcom. In fact, you can get to it from the file menu on the main SVG family tree generator form, where it's called load Gedcom file. We're going to do this within the tree designer. And we actually include a sample with the SVG family tree generator kit, and it's got 6 people that will be familiar if you've seen any of the other videos. In fact, the general layout of this form is familiar if you've used viewpoints. We're going to start with Henry Proctor and his spouse Elizabeth Turton, and they have 1 child. We're going to copy the person's spouse and all their children and go to the tree designer and paste that family in there. Lo and behold, we've got the 3 people, the marriage represented by the family tree circle, the family circle, and each one of those has an image. So we go back into the import Gedcom. Now we've done Henry Proctor, we'll do William Stanton and his spouse Emma Ashby and their child. And the only thing missing, if we go back in, is between their children, William Henry Proctor and Annie Elizabeth Stanton. So we'll include the person and spouse. I'll just paste that anywhere because it knows where those people are. Right, so it realises that William Henry Proctor and Annie Elizabeth Stanton are already there. So the only thing it needed to do was just draw the bridge and the family circle in between them. Now when you import from Gedcom you get a lot more than the names, or the captions I should say, and the images. You also get a lot of biographical information and events. If we look at one of these we'll see that this includes the birth event and the death event for that person, and this is in a rather complex looking HTML where it includes markup for the vital events. If we switch to the toolbar, this last option will just render it as it would be in the browser, so we can see exactly what we're looking at then. But that's all done for you. Not only that, if we switch to the tooltips, you can see that it's generated tooltips for us, which is a very brief version of the birth and death event. And if we go to the names button up there, it's included a proper, or all the alternative names for that person as would be held in the Gedcom file. So what we've illustrated here is a piecemeal import of Gedcom, where we're copying people and families from the Gedcom file into the tree designer. But that's not the only way of doing it. If we go to the load Gedcom form from the main SVG family tree generator form, it's the same one. You can see it's got the same file name loaded and the same people. We can export the whole thing to a file. That's a tree definition file. And We'll call it tree image 2 because there's already a tree image there. And now I can load that in. Are you sure you want to discard the changes you already made? Yes, that's fine. Tree image 2. We go into the tree designer. And it's basically the same. The layout's slightly different, but we could do an auto layout and put it the way we want it, but it's the same information. The difference between these two scenarios is that one's converted the whole of the Gedcom into a single tree definition file, and the other one you've imported piecemeal individuals and individual families into the tree designer, which might be more useful if you're building up a tree from multiple sources. Something to note if you've gone this last route where you've imported the whole of the file. If you look at the interactive applications, you'll see that timeline reports is now checked by default, and that's because the information that's imported from Gedcom is completely enough to support the timeline report application. So remember now that we're looking at a tree definition file which has been imported from a single Gedcom file. In the tree designer, my apologies, it's actually on the main form. You can export the whole of that tree that's currently held in memory to another Gedcom file. And because we started with a tree image .ged, we're going to put this to a tree image 2.ged. And to prove that that is a valid one, we'll try and import it. That's still showing the old one. Tree image 2.ged. Yep, and it's got the same people, and we could go through the whole process again. A couple of caveats here. The turnaround cannot be 100% accurate, or what should I say, consistent, because SVG Family Tree Generator and Gedcom work for entirely different purposes. Their goals are different. SVG is much more visual, so it has different types of information to a purely lineage-linked family tree representation. Putting this another way, SVG Family Tree Generator takes enough information out of the Gedcom to create a visual tree and support the applications. Since it's not a family tree information database, then it won't import absolutely everything from the Gedcom. So if you turn it around, you'll get a valid Gedcom, but not necessarily an identical one to the one you started with. And another caveat is that viewpoints are not compatible with Gedcom. So if you've got viewpoints defined, it will not export them to a Gedcom file, and SVG Family Tree Generator will not create viewpoints from a Gedcom file. But other than that, it's a way of interfacing to other software. Having said that, there are as many versions of Gedcom as there are products that manipulate it. There is a spec, and it's quite a good spec, but products interpret it differently, and some blatantly ignore the fine print. SVG Family Tree Generator includes quite a bit of code to accommodate all those variations and try and import it and export it in a standard form. A particular issue that's going to affect people out there is dates. Many products do not enforce dates conforming to the specification, and so you'll get all sorts of illegal date formats, and some of them can't be made into a valid date, and SVG Family Tree Generator has no choice but to report them as errors. So I think we've covered all the topics to do with Gedcom, and we'll wind up this video now.